Welcome, everyone. I am so excited today to be holding this panel and interviewing Dr. Wolf-Gideon and also chiming in with my own experience in a very important topic, which is how do we diagnose and how do we assess teams and how do we move them forward in better ways of agility so it makes sense for business as well as technology. So Dr. Wolf-Gideon, he's an Agile coach and management consultant at IT Agile in Germany. He studied Informatica and did his PhD in software engineering. He's been there from the very beginning. He is a guest professor at University of Washington, Seattle, and IT University Copenhagen. And not just from the academia, he led a department of 120 developers and introduced Agile methodology. So he has the experience from the trenches, the real solid gold experience. And now, right now, he is one of the members of IT Agile, which is Germany's leading Agile consulting firm. He is also a facilitator and trainer for the Agile Fluency Diagnostic. So, with that, welcome, Dr. Wolf Gideon.
Thank you, Ahmed, for having me.
Yes. So let's get to the subject on right away. So what we're talking about is comparing assessment tools for agile teams, right? And
That's right.
there's a lot of homegrown tools out there. People have been building this, the Nokia checklist, and all these other things that have existed. But we've come to a point where we need to do it with a level of rigor and level of fluency that is
Mhm,
expected of us to really
mhm,
uh, shine in this new, very complex and uncertain world. With
mhm,
that, I'm going to give it to you. You want to talk a little bit about who this topic is for?
mhm. Yeah, so when I'm working in the field and many companies approach us and they are telling us that they really love agile methods, but they've come to a point where they've reached a plateau or they really didn't get the results that were promised. And so they want improvements, they want us to help them. But what we usually need to do is figure out where are their weak spots, where do they shine, where does Agile really work. And to do that, managers need to um, relate their Agile teams to the business they have.
Absolutely.
And assessing a team or a group of teams is usually quite an expensive endeavor. So we really need to find out what for are we doing agile here, and the investments that we probably propose for in improving those teams need to be justified in the business model.
Absolutely.
So as a manager, I want that the teams effectively contribute to solving my business challenges with the best agile techniques that are, well, working for that particular business.
Absolutely. And the thing I will add to then, what really resonates with me, the idea of
Mhm,
investment, right? So
mhm,
when you want to go somewhere, if you need to go to like a destination, you don't want to overshoot. You don't want to
mhm,
go too far
mhm,
away, or you don't want to stop halfway, right? You need to
mhm.
get to your place. So you need to find the ways to make sure that the investment is giving the results you're looking for, not overinvest, not underinvest. And that's an important topic because we can't, in this uncertain world, we can't waste any time or energy, right? To
Exactly.
yeah, to just swirl around. So in that,
Exactly.
let me ask you this question, and I know we have this question in front of us.
Mhm,
Why is there a need for assessment even today?
mhm. Yeah, so um, usually you have invested in a number of teams that they become agile teams. And with that, you were promised a lot of aspects, agility, easy delivering software, time to market, and a lot of other things. And most likely you need those things to compete in your area of business. But then, after a certain period of time, you've restructured your company, you've established all those agile teams, you come to a point where you realize they are not delivering that promised way of developing agile software. So um, you have this bunch or this enormous list of agile practices, and you're now uncertain which of these practices do we really need to do, which of these practices are already done well and deliver, and which of those practices are not very well, and where should we invest and improve. So what are we doing right? Are we doing these things right? Are we doing the right things right? And this is the question that usually managers can't answer. They have all these books, all the literature, all these agile coaches, and everybody prefers a different set of agile practices.
Yeah.
And now we get the question: how do we do that right?
Yeah, and what's really resonating for me is like and we want to be inclusive, we want to be positive about things, right? People have
Mhm,
figured out things, and they're kind of there's one way of doing things, another way of doing things, and sometimes accidentally it feels like everybody's talking about something different. But there is a
mhm,
real problem. There is a real problem. There's a whole group of people who've come into Agile later on, and they tend to embrace the softer part, which is still an important part of Agile, right? But
mhm.
they'll say
Correct.
just be agile, just be
Mhm,
agile, right? Don't
mhm,
just do agile, just be. And there's this hand waving going on, right? Just be
mhm,
agile. It's the
mhm,
mindset, which it
mhm,
is. But remember, in any field, mindset is visible through active practices. If you
mhm,
were walking to a craftsman shop and you see them doing certain things in their craft, right, unobtrusive measures, then because mindset is something that comes through deliberate practice. And whether using one tool for diagnosing, another tool for diagnosing, and there's options, and we want to share what those tools are, and each one of them
mhm,
come with pros and cons, but we want to keep
mhm,
it fact based and help
mhm.
you figure out what's right for you. But I love that your emphasis on there's so much, but then how do you get
There is a lot.
started? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And how do you
And
focus? Yeah.
you want to look at the outcome. You really want a team, for instance, to deliver software reliably, so that you are sure that every other week or every month or every day, whatever your business needs, you get a new piece of software with the new increment and the features that have been implemented. But that's
Absolutely.
exactly where the question comes up: how often do I need to deliver? How expensive is delivering every day or delivering every week or every month? And then there's the business side, and you need to look at what business are we working on, and what does this business need in terms of implementing continuous delivery. Do we really need every day or many times a day, or is it sufficient if we have a 1 week or 2 week cycle here?
And I love that because if you are, what is your business, what is your value to
Mhm,
the customer? Because
mhm,
if you're not, if you are in, say, insurance industry or manufacturing industry, you don't need to, like, if you want to do everything copy paste of Netflix or
mhm,
Amazon, the question
mhm.
becomes, well, are you Netflix and are you Amazon, right? Why are you
Exactly.
copying and mimicking? Because it will not work, right? There's no one
Mhm,
size fits all. You have to
mhm.
implement from best practices and make it real based on where you are and what your needs are. Yeah.
Correct. And there are some agile practices that you need to learn early on, and you really need to thoroughly work in
Yeah,
these uh, practices. And
absolutely.
some practices are more like add-ons. If you have a very competitive market and your competitors are fast in delivering new features, you probably need to have additional practices in your team. But if you are in a market where you just deliver 3 or 4 times a year, you probably don't need to shine in this area, but you need to concentrate on other practices.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. So let's
Mhm.
talk about what is available. So there's many options available, but we picked
Mhm.
up the three industry leaders in our space currently, right? Versus
Correct.
the homegrown consultant owned, but these are the three that you can actually today, if you decide, you can invest in each one of them and you can bring them to your
Mhm.
teams. Versus some that
Mhm.
you have to go through a consulting organization, but these are available to anybody, like so they're publicly accessible. So we picked
Exactly.
dimensions of how we want to compare those three so that we do justice by you at least at the surface level. So this is not a deep dive, but what
Mhm.
are the dimensions we're looking at when we look at the top diagnostic tools available?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
Wolf,
Yeah,
can you?
so I mean, the need for assessment is quite clear. However, each assessment you need to pay for. It's not for free. There's no free lunch. So even if you get the assessment technology or the tools, the questionnaire, whatever it is, almost for free. You need to invest your time, you need to invest organizational support work in order to make those happen. But obviously, there's also cost associated with that. And we want to look at how expensive are these and what do we get for that. The second dimension is purpose. So, how does the assessment take into account the area that you're working in? How does it help you in answering the questions that are most important for you? And the
Absolutely.
third category is actually guidance. So we not only want to assess and then be left alone with the results or with the raw data, we would like to be guided in how do we now start an improvement process? How do we make sure that our team gets better over time? And how do we then continue with maybe assessing or improving the team?
Yeah, and no, Wolf Gideon, you and I, we've been working on this for a while to see compare
Mm.
and contrast, and also
Mhm.
we have tried these tools in the wild, and we saw there was so many dimensions, so many ways to slice it, but these three words seem to be the core places that you should really pay attention to get value for your money, regardless of which one
Exactly.
you select. Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
Perfect. So let's go on to the first one. And remember, the persona is for the person who's investing in their team, the manager who's investing in the
Mhm.
team. So let's go back to the first one. So Agility Health Radar, right?
Mhm.
I have used it personally as well, but and maybe I will speak to it, and then Dr. Wolfgideon, you may add to it. So
Yeah, sure.
what happens is a lot of times Agility Health Radar has this really cool platform, and they have a very nice visuals that come out of it. There is a entry, there's a ticket price for it to get the platform. A lot of time
Mhm.
there's depends on your size. What I've seen in the wild is most of the time they play in the custom pricing space, and like the
Mhm.
whole enterprise adopts it. That way they can see the radars, and they can have everybody in the organization, scrum master and agile coaches, execute
Mhm.
for them. And then
Mhm.
there's facilitator training, because the tool is the tool, but you got to build some facilitation skill in it. And
Correct.
the variation of the facilitator skills definitely shows up in my own personal experience. So in
Mhm.
the cost, it's kind of at the higher end, but you get a
Mhm.
cohesive platform, and you get
Mhm.
some very good visualization and drill down tools, right?
Yeah.
And the purpose
Right.
here is to, they really embrace the idea of maturity. So pre-crawl, crawl, walk, run, fly, right? In each one of the
Mhm.
define what that looks like in the sub dimensions, as in the dimension in each of the areas. And what they really fundamentally do is they have built a radars based on frameworks. Or like, or interviews from experts. So the team assessments based on interviews from the people who are considered experts in teams. Safe assessment exists, DevOps, LPM, and they continue to add more
Mhm.
tools or radars for different assessments. And again, their approach is to create questionnaires and give them definition of where you are, and then let the team pick what's the improver. So in the fundamentals, you'll see the elements of the same thing again and again. But what's different in this one is that this is quite an investment, because there are 60 plus questions. For example, the team needs to go through them, and then you have to have a strong facilitator to focus
Mhm.
them in the 2 3 hours they spend together to make sure that they're picking the right organizational level improvement and team level improvement. So,
Mhm.
and I can't emphasize that the more facilitation you can skill build within the organization, the better you get at this. But it is definitely a very tool visual indicator.
Mhm.
Dr. Wolfgieden, do you want to add something to it?
Yeah. So what I'm interested in, and I understand you actively use this technique here,
Yeah.
is it mainly aimed at large companies where you have the facilitator as an internal person and regularly doing the analysis there?
So I think they allow for all. So it is kind of a all in. So platforms, they have
Mhm.
many features, right?
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
believe they don't say external and internal only, but what I've
Mhm.
seen in practice, or where I am with a very large organization, right?
Mhm.
We have internal facilitators, right? So the
Mhm.
external do not come in. Internal facilitators, the training happens, right? And then scrum masters do tend to run this for other teams, except for
Mhm.
not for their own team, because
Mhm.
Agility Health Radar says that you are part of the team and you shouldn't be doing the
You
assessment.
shouldn't be
Yeah, and
biased.
that is sound advice. But I think external people external people can and have used it. I see
Mhm.
predominantly it's internal facilitators that are doing this,
Mhm. Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that's fair enough. Let's also talk about something that's compared to a similar one where there's an expert, what's it called? They interview experts to get the right questions in place. So the next one is comparative agility. Uh,
Mhm.
why don't you talk about this?
Yeah, so comparative agility's approach is to really collect a huge set of data. And that could be done in your organization. So you could regularly assess your teams and then compare the team's improvement over time. But also, if you are in a certain industry, what you can do with this tool is you can compare your results to all the other members of that industry. And that's where it's trying to shine and to be better compared to other assessment tools, because now you are able to look at all the competitors here. The pricing is interesting because it's free for 5 collectors or even for 50 collectors when you are a Scrum Alliance member, and that can be easily done. So, what is a collector? A collector is one team assessment. So, if you have one team and you have 5 free collectors, you could assess that team 5 times. If you have 5 teams, you can just assess each team once and your 5 collectors are used up. So with 50 collectors, you can do 10 teams 5 times, which is quite a lot. And you would then need an additional license for more teams, um, assuming that you are a Scrum Alliance member here. Um, Ahmed?
Yeah, so
Or,
so and I've had, so because I'm also a Scrum Alliance member, so I have the business
Mhm,
plan, and it's one of them. It's probably the richest of all the diagnostics because it has the bossa nova diagnostic, it
mhm,
has the product, it has it's basically it has partnered with all sorts of people. I know Mark Kilby and Joanna Rothman. They have a remote teams diagnostic in there too.
mhm,
So it is
mhm,
quite a big plate, and I think because the mathematical foundation is strong, there is a lot of promise here. What I'm
mhm,
finding in comparative agility that in usage, right? It's not quite a popular in usage because it's kind of I guess it's still in an early stage, but there's a lot of promise in comparative agility. And from the idea
mhm,
of what they say is comparison within
mhm,
across your
mhm,
industry, across your peers, and for whatever it's worth, it may be perceived as valuable. So I think
mhm,
there is a lot of good visuals here. There's a lot of good things. What the danger is to see all those assessments, say, well, which one do I need to do, and is that one
mhm,
time
mhm.
thing? So I think this one is probably more suitable for external consultants than internal, because
Yeah.
internal may, yeah, it,
Yeah,
it
so I think it's the strong side really is this huge set of different assessment sets, and you can choose from all of them as long as they are available in the comparative agility overview. You can pick them and use them for your set of teams, and that is fantastic if you want to do a specific one.
yeah,
And you can also assume that there have been other teams, other companies doing that, and then you can
yes.
start comparing to those teams. So
And
that's really
yeah, and the only advice I would give if this is something you do pick up is to make sure that you have a game plan for, like,
good.
how are you going to run it not just once and done, but how are you going to do it the next cycle over, and see how you're
Mhm.
trending up or trending down. So really don't leave it hanging, almost like you have to create a advisory board, right?
Mhm.
To
Mhm.
decide, well, which one of the diagnostics are we going to apply that are beneficial for our teams, which comparative
Mhm.
agility would say that you're coming as an external and internal consultant, you have given
Mhm.
it some thought, and then see how are you going to execute it to have those follow-up conversations. All right, looks like this is how we are compared to others, or how we are, and where do we want to take it from here. So that's something
Exactly.
that is different, but there's definitely you can
Yeah.
take that advice.
Yeah.
Cool.
So the magic here is actually having a facilitator that is very well known in the field, or can help you select the right assessment for your teams and for the purpose of your improvement. And as you already stated, I think it's crucial that you have a plan what to do with the results. And that applies to all the assessments that we are talking about here. You need to know what to do with the data. Just collecting the data and having them printed out and putting them in a drawer doesn't really help you. You need to come up with a plan. What are we going to do next? How do we improve the team? And when will we reassess the team situation? When can we look for results?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's an anti-pattern for any assessment. If the purpose
Mhm.
was only to create a vanity metric, only a
Mhm.
chart, and do nothing about it, it's not going to give you any value, right?
That's not a
So,
good idea. And it's
so
quite expensive as well. Yeah.
absolutely. So let's move on to the one that you and I both have done the most, right? Which
Mhm.
is which
Mhm.
is the Agile Fluency Diagnostic. Maybe you
Mhm.
can chime in, and then I can also share from my experience.
Yeah, sure. I can tell you a lot about that.
Yeah.
So the Agile Fluency Diagnostic is aimed at training facilitators. So you become a specially trained Agile Fluency Diagnostic facilitator, and that's why the pricing is not related to the number of teams, but per facilitator. So if after becoming a facilitator, you can do as many diagnostics as you like. So in a large company, you could really scale that, or you could be a freelancer and just go from company to company and do the diagnostic. The purpose here is um, building on a conversation with management that is called OMV conversation. First, identifying what is the area of agility that this particular business needs. So you're grouping the teams into cohorts, and you select one cohort and figure out what is the right Agile Fluency zone. So the whole Agile Fluency Diagnostic is obviously built on the Agile Fluency model. And after the conversation with management, you know which fluency zone best applies to the business that they are dealing with. Then you do the assessment with one or more teams, and then you come up with an improvement plan. So it's not only doing the diagnostic, but it's also providing an improvement plan and providing um, an investment plan. What are the next steps, and how do they chime in with making the team a better agile team?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I want to add, so my that's my favorite part of this particular diagnostic is that you have that alignment conversation, those only conversations in the beginning. So you make sure that,
Mhm.
well, what is the expectation for the team, and then the team gets together and talks about business from the engineer's perspective, from the
Mhm.
developer's perspective, and there's just so much goodness when we bridge those
Mhm.
gaps. And the other
Mhm.
thing I like about this is it's not about maturity, right? That's a big
Right.
nuance that is not clearly. So the questions are not questions, they're statements. This is an
Mhm.
observable outcome. This is a statement. Do you do this all the time? Do you do this
Mhm.
some of the time, rarely, or
Mhm.
never, right? And then
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
that conversations, you build out this map. And even the Agile Fluency. So Agile Fluency is suite of tools, right? The
Mhm.
diagnostic, the model, right? The Excel spreadsheets that come with it, the improvement cycle, right? And the improvement
Mhm.
cycle itself is based out of some like very solid theory and practice from Toyota Kata and from
Mhm.
like the kata exercises. And it's just the foundations of practices. And every single time we come back and we tell them, well, these are the practices you should start now, and with team's
Mhm.
permission, because we want to be inclusive
Exactly.
about that, right? And this
Exactly.
should be next. And then
Mhm.
that way we know that the fluency is coming at the team level, not just at an individual level.
Mhm. Right. And I have to agree. I also very much like that it's not a maturity model, because from what I see in the Agile Fluency model is you can really be in zone two already with all the engineering techniques, but you are struggling with the first zone. And for instance, by not being able to really prioritize your stories in regards to the business value that they provide. And I've seen that so many times. And also with this notion of not being a maturity model, I can actually go into a conversation with managers where they don't aim for the highest zone as they
Yes.
usually do. Managers always want the
Unicorns,
top,
right? They want the
yeah,
unicorns. Yeah,
basically. And we can go into a more productive conversation. What do you actually need for the team and for your business?
absolutely. So I think this is a good surface level view. So I would,
Hmm.
and we're going to share this on LinkedIn and YouTube. This video should be
Hmm.
will be posted. What I want
Right.
to hear from you all is, hey, and this was very surface level. We thought about doing a demo, walking through each diagnostic, how we've done it, share our case studies. We talked about a lot of things, but in the time that we have, those deep dives are not suitable. But definitely, if there is
Hmm.
an appetite for it, leave a comment saying, hey, I want to
Hmm.
learn more about this particular one, or I want to see a case study. So share, leave
Hmm.
a comment for us to say, well, what would you like next? Do you want a deep dive? We can definitely offer more, but for at least give you a grounding on the topmost diagnostic tools that we do recommend. These are the three, and this is how they compare. So in
Right.
that, I want to say that, connect with us. Here's my email address, and Dr. Wolf Gideon, your email address are there. And then LinkedIn, if you're watching this post in LinkedIn, please leave a comment in LinkedIn to connect with us, and we'll be happy to connect with you.
So,
So, where do we take it from here, Dr. Wolf-Gideon? Let's talk about that.
well, as you mentioned, I would be happy to do more videos on that if people really like the content. So that would be great. And for instance, I could talk a little bit more about the Agile Fluency Diagnostic. I've conducted that many, many times in very different contexts, and I could talk a little bit about my experience. From what I know, you've done Agility Health Radar also many, many times, and we could talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And my flavor of Agile Fluency Diagnostic is also doing it truly in back in Capital One. We did it, we
Mhm.
ran multiple versions of it.
Mhm.
But then in
Mhm.
other places, I tend to do it incognito, which is another
Mhm.
option, because
Mhm.
regardless of what the enterprise is doing, you can always be the bridge of translating it and still
Mhm.
using that. Because remember, we're empowering coaches and consultants and managers to become really
Mhm.
good at this, so that
Mhm.
when there's a level of proficiency, fluency comes with them. So there's
Mhm.
definitely, we can talk about it. And comparative agility is also an ongoing topic, but if there's more interest, we will definitely be happy to offer
Yeah.
more details and more content. Yeah,
And maybe sometime in the future, we do a panel with people that do other diagnostic
yeah,
methods, and we'll talk about that all together. That would be great.
absolutely. Wonderful. Well, I am so grateful for you to join me, and I'm so
Mhm.
grateful to interview you today.
Thank you
And
for
I
having
hope,
me.
yeah, thank you so much. So with that, just connect with us, reach out, subscribe, all the other good stuff that the cool kids are saying. So let's do that, and see you next time. Have a wonderful day.
Bye.
Bye bye.